What's going on, guys? Um, I'm not doing a review today. Um, Something on my mind that I need to get out there. I have been seeing lots and lots and lots of posts of people asking, where do I go when I'm getting ready to make the jump to a bigger and better device? And I have seen a lot of people that are giving people very, very, very bad and potentially dangerous advice. This video is to basically let people know that you absolutely have to do your homework on new devices. Um, I don't have all the stuff to give you examples, but it's a lot easier for me to talk about it than to try and type out some big raving rant. Um, First and foremost, if you do not have a clue about battery safety or Ohm's law, do not start building super low, because this is something that a lot of us are doing. And yes, I build extremely low, but I have been building for approximately 2 years now. I started out way back in the good old days of Eco Wool, when our idea of sub ohm was around 0.75 ohms. The build that is in this Addy right now is probably 0.08. And the reason that I can build that low is because, one, my box will handle it. It is a full mechanical box. It's designed for super sub ohm. Second, the batteries that I'm using are safe. I use HE4s and the 25Rs because they actually take the load that I put them under and come back for more. I know that a lot of people are always saying Sony VTC4, Sony VTC5. I have a set of Sony VTC4s. They do not handle my builds. They get too hot, especially in a single battery tube mod. So I highly recommend, if you are serious about sub-ohm vaping, that you take the time to learn about building, because learning is critical. I see way too many shops that have customers that come in, here's my device, I want a hot build. And they build the Addy, hand it to them, charge them a couple of bucks. Some cases they'll do it for free, and send them out the store with not a bit of knowledge. Because if you do not know what you are doing and what to look for, the potential risk involved is pretty dangerous. I don't want to put it to a point where, you know, it looks bad for vaping, because if you take the time to learn and do it right, it can be done and it can be very safe. But with anything, if I go grab some random guy that has no clue how to handle a race car and put him in it, what's the potential that could go wrong? But if I take that same guy and I put him in that race car after teaching him safety, putting him in the proper equipment to make him safe for racing, then he's got a lot better chance of actually doing it right. And vaping needs to be done that way. So basically, the vast majority of you have started out, like most of us, on something basic. I would say either a cig-alike or your run-of-the-mill ego setup. If you do not know what ohms are, and you do not know anything on wrapping, do your homework. YouTube is your best friend. Learning to build is absolutely critical. I am going to stress it over and over and over and over. Learn. Watch a couple of basic YouTube videos. There's lots of us that have put out videos and tutorials on basic building. There are tons of resources on battery safety. There are tons of spots where all you've got to go in there is ask questions, and we will teach you the basics on building. I mean, first possible quick, simple, easy build or basic safety routine is to learn the difference, if you're going to buy a box, between parallel and series. Technically, the Sigeli 150 is a series mod. As you can see, positive and positive. So by having the batteries facing the opposite way, this is a series device. And basically what it does is it doubles the voltage. You're no longer pushing 4.2 or 4 volts that the battery is. You're up in the 8-volt range, which is why this device is able to last as long as it does and put out the power that it does consistently throughout the cycle of the battery. The other thing is the batteries are not created equal when you're doing this. As I've pointed out, the Sony VTC4s not only have the issue of, in a mechanical device, getting hotter. The big drawback that I have noticed with the Sony VTC4s and batteries like the MXJOs is that I can put my VTC4s in this device or my MXJOs in this device. At 100 watts, I can run it down to somewhere between 70 and 60% before I've got to start dropping my wattage to keep it at 100 watt, or to keep it putting out and firing, because after it hits a certain point it will not power the device because it does not have the voltage. My HE4s and my 25Rs will actually power at 100 watts all the way down to basically what is considered 40 to 30% of the safe discharge before it will cut down and need to be backed off the power. Alright, as I was saying, the differences in parallel is this mod here. Both positives are facing up. What it's basically doing is you've got two batteries that are putting out the basic voltage of the battery. You're not getting a big step up. What you're basically doing is you're discharging both batteries at the same time, so that way it takes longer to discharge the batteries and you're not kicking the power up. Mechanicals do run in series as well, I will not, in any way, shape, or form, condone a new builder having a series mod. Because if you do not know the safety, it is obvious that by doubling the voltage, you are putting the battery under a greater strain, and you have the possibility of venting the battery. Now, 90 to 95% of the time, if you're going to have an issue with the battery, it's not going to be explosive. But there is that ever so small chance that it can happen. So, always, always, always know your battery safety. Don't leave them in a hot car. Don't over discharge them. Don't overcharge them. Use a good charger. One of the best chargers on the market is easily available. Highly recommend this particular charger. It is the X-Star VP4. Each and every one of these bays works independently of one another. It has 3 charging speeds. It will charge at 1 amp in the 2 outside bays if the batteries are capable of handling a 1 amp charge. It will charge on all 4 bays at 0.5, and it will charge all 4 bays at a trickle of 0.25 amps. And the 0.25, the reason that you want that is, say you've got a set of batteries that may have been accidentally taken down too low, or they're older and you don't think that they're lasting as long, or they're not hitting as hard. You can run a trickle charge cycle, and on occasion it has been known to bring the batteries back up to a full health. It's basically like a battery maintainer that you get on expensive car charging batteries, where it rebuilds the electrolytes and makes it so that way the batteries will last longer. But the other big thing about battery safety is the simple fact of knowing that batteries have a finite set of charge cycles. Like, I've got a set of M&KEs that I've had for probably a year and a half now. Unfortunately, they're not good enough to use for most of the build applications that I have nowadays. I honestly don't know why I still have them. They were just such good batteries back in the day that I find it hard to part with them, because they are still usable. But the simple fact of the matter is they don't work for the way that I build anymore, because they don't handle the amps, and they just don't have the capacity, because they are 1600 mAh, and with a 1600 mAh battery, with the builds that I'm running, it will just basically instantaneously discharge, and you're probably going to get maybe 10-20 minutes worth of vape time out of it. So it doesn't really benefit me. And like I've said, they do get hot because they're not the amp rating for the builds that I run. And I honestly don't build high anymore. The other thing about the lower mAh batteries is the lower mAh batteries are exactly why the MXJOs and the VTC4s do not put out in the high wattage regulated devices, because they just don't have the amps and the punch to keep up with the device. I mean, I actually had my M&KEs in my Sigelli 150 just to test it, and they would not fire a single time at 100 watts. I had to kick it down to 70 watts before I could get it to fire, or somewhere in that general ballpark. But battery safety, battery safety, battery safety. If you do not own a ohm meter, buy one. They are priceless. You can use them for a multitude of tasks in building. I do not recommend using them to build on. I would use something that is more sturdy. I typically will use a tube mod to build on. I do not build on my boxes because I don't want my 510 pin rattling around. I do not want to pull it out, and the tube mods are just so much sturdier to build on. Pro builder tip for you. Um, Something else that is absolutely critical with being able to use your meter is it's going to tell you if you've got shorts. If it doesn't show a number, then you've definitely got a short somewhere. Another thing that you can do with the ohm meter as well, if you've got an addy that's acting up and the ohms are bouncing around on your mod, then put it on your ohm reader and put your finger on the screws. Wiggle the screw, wiggle it back and forth. If the posts move and you get an up and down, or going from reading a number to no number to reading a number, bouncing back and forth, then either the post is loose, if it's not a solid post, or your screw is loose. So tighten that screw back down and make sure that you're hot spotted out, and check for shorts again. Back on your mod it goes. The other reason that I say make sure to have an ohm meter is I don't care how good your mod is, the ohm reader inside the mod is not a dedicated ohm reader. It will not be as accurate. In the days of old, when I had the old school Tesla, it actually was point 0.2 off, because you could put a build on an occasion and have it read at a point 0.9, and it was actually a like say a 1.9 when it was actually reading a 1.7 on the meter. Okay, so because it's not dedicated, it is not going to be accurate. The other thing about not having a dedicated ohm meter is, like I said, you're not going to be able to test that wiggle it back and forth routine, because I don't know about you, but I'm not trying to push the button and wiggle them screws and see what happens, because you definitely might wind up with a branded finger. You may even get a slight shock by completing the circuit. So, pro tip on an ohm meter. Um, what else can I think of? The difference between a mechanical, as you can see, I've got a piece that connects that is actually solid, and it will actually complete the circuit with a mechanical switch. If you have a Hammond box or some of these others, instead of having the mechanical, it will have wiring. I would highly recommend, if you are using a wired box like that, that you have a MOSFET, and that you do not push that MOSFET below, say, 0.08, because once you go below 0.08 and you get down around 0.06 on a fetted box, you do run the risk of blowing the MOSFET, among other things. Having the MOSFET is absolutely critical as well, because unless you have a really good switch that will actually handle the amperage and wattage that is getting ran through it, odds are you will probably fry your switch, and obviously weak link can come back to the battery. So safety, 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 safety. Um, I will be doing some videos on actual building. So, plain and simple, definitely know your devices. Um, can't say it enough on hybrids. If you do not know what a protruding 510 pin on the atomizer is, do not buy a hybrid. Do not use tanks on a hybrid because a lot of the tanks do not have a pin that sticks out of the bottom of the atomizer, because the screwing portion of your atomizer that threads in, if the little screw or the little button that's on the bottom of that is sunk inside, it will not make proper contact on a hybrid device. And a lot of people are hard shorting or actually just getting other short and heat issues with hybrids. I, again, like series devices, I do not condone hybrids for new builders. Hybrids take a lot more effort and a lot more knowledge, and I would recommend something with a solid 510 pin. That way you are able to actually make good contact. Um, Perfect device for a new builder that is both cheap and efficient, and one of the best bang for your buck devices is a Nemesis clone in copper or brass. They are very upgradable. I still own one of each to this very day and will not sell them, even though they are only clones. They're not worth squat. They're just such good devices that they have been through abuse. I used a copper Nemesis clone for a year or more and never had a problem with it, except for dropping it and falling with it, which messed up my magnets and bent a switch because I had done the magnet upgrades. So keep your eyes open, guys. I will be talking more safety and more about building in the near future. I just absolutely had to get this rant out there. Sorry it took so long. Hopefully you had enough patience to sit and watch. But I digress. Take the time, ask questions, and if anybody tells you with no experience that you should buy a device that is either a hybrid or a series mechanical device, avoid their advice like the plague. Um, and if you're taking the time to watch this, you can click into the links and you can find my Facebook page and add me. And if you're in any groups that I'm in, ask me questions. I will more than gladly try and help. It's, just the way we do things. So be safe and take the time to learn about the devices before you use them. Don't blow yourself up, as Robert Greene likes to say. So stay safe out there, guys.